What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another trade sim video. LA and Toronto just made a late night trade, and probably the first significant trade of the NHL season since the Taylor Hall trade about a month and a half ago, so figured I'd make a video on it. So if you guys are wondering why I'm uploading so late, this trade literally went down like 11 o'clock at night, but we're going to see now whether or not this trade would go through in-game. Personally, I feel like both teams made out pretty well here. Obviously, everyone knows Toronto needs a solid backup goaltender, and I feel like they really get that in Jack Campbell. He's a pretty solid goalie, making $700K right now. Is extended, though, at 1.6 for the next 2 years. There was actually some times, too, where Jonathan Quick got injured. Campbell stepped in and played pretty well. Now, this season hasn't been quite as good, but neither has really the team in front of him, so I feel like that's always a big part of it with goalies. You can see there, though, trade value isn't very high. For LA, actually, as a whole, they pretty much have no goalies with value. Peterson should definitely be higher. 24 years old, 76 overall. I'd say, really, he's like a 78. He's a pretty good young goalie. And I would probably give him, like, medium starter potential opposed to medium fringe, at least, like, high fringe. Like, he's probably the goalie of the future for LA. Will definitely be called up, I think, to be the backup behind Quick. So, Jack Campbell there as well. They actually got Kyle Clifford. So, for any Leafs fans that want them to get like some more grit in their lineup, they definitely get that with Clifford. You can see there, 20 years old, 78 overall, making 1.6. 1 year left on his deal. So he's actually a pending free agent. And as you can see there, he's another guy with really not much value, but 90 strength, 92 aggressiveness, 90 body check. Definitely brings a different element to their lineup. Right now, they pretty much have all scorers, I'd say, even looking down at the fourth line. As well, too, they actually got LA to retain 50% on Clifford, so they'll still be under the salary cap max. I'm not really sure if they can pull off another trade after this one. I feel like they're going to be, pretty close to that salary cap limit. Now, Leafs gave up, in my opinion, a pretty good young forward in Trevor Moore. I think in-game he's a left winger, but real life I feel like he can play center or wing. 24 years old, 74 overall, entry-level deal, medium bomb 6 potential. I think I actually mentioned this in my last video, the roster update. I feel like Moore is one of the most underrated players on the Leafs team for sure, maybe even in-game. Like, if you look at like his teammates, he should definitely be, I think, a 78, at least medium top 9, maybe even low top 6. Like comparing to Engvall, Timashov, similar players, they're both like, 78's higher potential. So why Moore's so much lower, I'm not exactly sure. But LA gets a very solid young player to build around. Pretty good offensive player, which LA desperately needs. And they also get a couple draft picks. They get Columbus 3rd round pick in this year's draft. Also, they get a conditional 2021 3rd round pick. It has to do with whether or not Kyle Clifford resigns to the Leafs, as well as how many wins Jack Campbell gets for the Maple Leafs. That's what Pierre LeBrun just tweeted. So we'll assume, I guess, that those things happen. They get the 2nd, 3rd rounder. And then we can like say, if those don't happen, we'll try it with just the 1 3rd rounder. So right there's a look at the trade. As you can see, I think the Leafs are going to say no here. The value is quite a bit on their side, but we'll give this a shot. Medium trade difficulty as always for this. And yeah, trade gets rejected. So let's say Campbell hits his wins, but Clifford doesn't resign. I think both had to happen to get the extra 3rd rounder. This is still a pretty good return in my eyes for LA. Like, they're losing a 4th line forward and a backup goalie. They're pretty much giving up nothing here in my eyes for a 3rd rounder and more. Like, they're definitely making out well. And so is Toronto too, because Moore was kind of like an extra guy. They had, so many similar players to that. A 3rd rounder doesn't really help a team that's competing now, and they get a thing they really needed, which is a solid backup goalie, which I think Campbell will be. Obviously played for the Spits, former 1st rounder, was pretty bad there, beginning of his career, but definitely came along and started, to show he is a solid backup in my eyes. But we'll see whether or not this goes through now with the 1 3rd. And trade is still rejected. Okay. Also, guys, I want to give you an update look at LA's lines after the trade. Now, before the trade, their team status was already rebuilder. Obviously, they didn't get better with this trade, but honestly, I feel like it's a good trade for them for the future. You can see there, this is just me kind of giving my best guess of the forward lines. I believe that's their 1st line. 2nd line here, I actually have Campbell up on, and then I have the 3rd line with Grundstrom, Lizotte, and Moore. Obviously, LA actually got Grundstrom back with the Jake Muzzin trade with Toronto last season, so maybe they'll try and get Grundstrom and Moore playing together on a line. That could be pretty cool. Decent 4th line, honestly, Lewis, Prokhorkin, and Amadeo. No defensive changes, and of course, goalies, like I said, Cal Peterson there gets called up to be the backup. And again, I feel like both Peterson and Moore are underrated. I would say they're both probably 78s, with a bit higher potential than they're showing in games. I also just noticed Grundstrom's a 74. I feel like he should probably be slightly higher as well. I'm not really sure who's better between him and Moore. Probably both should be like 77, 78 though. So, like I was saying, guys, we're now going to try the trade from Leafs perspective and see what LA says. As you can see here, the Kings do want Columbus 3rd round pick, which makes sense. They're actually not interested in Trevor Moore, but they were interested in some similar guys like Hyman and Engvall, so I think just because he's a bit lower rated than he should be. Campbell, Clifford there looks to have a bit less value, so if this gets rejected, we'll pretend like the condition for the 2nd, 3rd round goes through, and we'll add that on. But honestly, I feel like this has a pretty good chance of going through just looking at it. We'll see what the Kings say here. And yeah, trade is accepted. So even without the 2nd, 3rd round pick, in-game EA feels like the Kings won this trade. And honestly, I feel like it's a pretty fair trade. I've seen a lot of people online, mostly Leafs fans, saying how they think, they gave up way too much there. Moore's already better than Clifford. Campbell's only okay. They shouldn't have given up like the second condition, which I think is fair. I think like Moore in third out the conditional, extra third probably is enough, but I don't think it's really like the end of the world or anything. Also, too, as you'll see in game, it really doesn't make the team any better as Michael Hutchinson was already an 80, but 80 is definitely too high for him. Like 80 is a solid backup, and if you look at all the backup boys in the league, he's probably a low-end backup, so I would say he should be somewhere from like a 75 to 78 at the most. Like Jack Campbell definitely is an upgrade, so again, that's how you sometimes know when ratings are wrong, when a team clearly makes a trade to upgrade a position, and in-game that position, you know, the two guys are rated the same. But I'll take a look at the Leafs lines now, see if, you know, they are looking a little bit nicer. And just like the LA Kings guys, no change to the team stats of the Maple Leafs. They were champion beforehand, and they're still champion. So my best guess here at the forward lines, obviously Mikheiv's injured right now, and they're always changing him up, but I think this is like around what they'll probably roll when everybody's healthy. So if you're looking at it, like, that's a pretty good forward group. I mean, if you told me this is the forward group that won the Stanley Cup, I would not be surprised. Like, they're pretty stacked throughout. Obviously, no changes to the defense, but this is probably what I'd rock once Riley comes back. Maybe switching out Ceci for Sandin, and then, of course, in goal now, we have Anderson as a starter with Campbell backing him up. So, I think the Leafs definitely made their team a bit more solid. I'm honestly not too sure, though, about Clifford on the fourth line. I feel like he's a guy who will probably be scratched, like, every other game. Like, certain games they'll want him in, other games they won't, but I figured here I'd give you guys a look at Jack Campbell in a Maple Leaf sweater. It's kind of cool always to see them like on the different team. More I probably should have shown in LA, but kind of forgot. So right here's Campbell with the Maple Leafs jersey. I guess with the goalie, it's kind of hard to tell because you can't really see their face that well. But Campbell there on the back, Leafs jersey didn't look too bad. Again, was like, you know, supposed to be a very, very good goalie. He's a first-round pick. Dallas has made a couple first-round pick goalies though, him as well as Jake Ottinger. And neither have really turned out so far to be first-round talent goalies. So that team's a big reason why less teams are taking goalies in the first round. And then right here's a look at Kyle Clifford. Honestly, doesn't even really look like him, but still, figured I'd share that to you guys. But that's going to be it, guys, for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, leave that thumbs up. As always, in the comments section, I'd like to hear from you guys, especially the Maple Leafs fans and the Kings fans, too. I know there's some of you. Do you guys think your team won the trade? Do you think they lost? Let me know why.
A few moments later.
And quick update on the conditional pick, guys. Pierre LeBrun tweeted this as I was recording the video, so I didn't realize till after, but apparently the second, third rounder is guaranteed to be at least a third rounder, and it could become a second rounder if Kyle Clifford resigns or Jack Campbell gets 6 wins and the Leafs make the playoffs. So at first I thought it was like those conditions both had to be met to make it a third, but no, it's actually like a guaranteed third, and if either thing happens, it becomes a second. So that makes the trade, I think, definitely more favored on LA's side. At that point, you're giving up a second, a third, and a decent prospect for a fourth liner and a backup goalie. Like, it's a pretty steep price to pay. Like, that's what Edmonton paid for Talbot to be their starting goaltender. I think that's what other teams have paid for guys to come in and be a starter. So at that point, yeah, I think LA definitely wins the trade. Beforehand, when it could have just been like more in a third, I feel like it was a bit more even. But with the new information, I think the Kings definitely win this one.